Hey guys, Dave here. Welcome to the Centurions Review, the punk rock band of war game review institutions. I've created a little video game called Survival on a Forgotten World. You get to it at centurionsreview.com/survival. Whole point of this was just to make a basic hex game engine that it can reuse on more complex games later. But just click Start to begin. So once you began, it gives you a message. You have crashed on a mysterious Earth-like planet. Suddenly you detect radio transmissions from the northwest. Go there to find help. You have a laser pistol and limited food and water. However, you can hunt and dig for water if you need to. So the controls are end turn, which ends your turn, sleep, hunt, and gather water. You have 4 action points per turn. You start with 4 days of water, 3 days of food, and 10 life points, and an exhaustion of 0. If you get more than 3 exhaustion, you take a wound. So to move, you just click on the character, and it tells you what spaces you can move to and how many action points. So that's 1 action point to move there. And now I'm being attacked by a Stegosaurus. So I fire my laser pistol and did 1 damage to him, but he missed. Now he's dead. So I can continue with my turn. So I move onto the hill there. And I only have 1 action point left, so it only shows valid spaces you can move to. That space there costs 2 action points, so it doesn't show that. So I'm just going to hunt to use my last action point, and then go to end turn. And as you see, I got 1 exhaustion, so I need to sleep. You can only sleep once per turn, and that removes 1 exhaustion. So then I'll start moving again. And I get attacked by a T-Rex. Alright, I'm shooting. This one I missed, and he did 1 to me, and now he's dead. One thing, if you get to this space here, which is a cave, if you get there, you get all your action points left, and you get 2 life points back, and all your exhaustion goes to 0. That's the only way you can remove more than 1 exhaustion per turn, or the only way you can get any life points back. So he's going to move 1. Alright, and start his turn again. Alright, so he's going to sleep because he gets too much exhaustion. And move here. And here. And then he's going to hunt. He found 3 days worth of food. And end his turn. And move into this space here. He gets attacked by a T-Rex again. Alright, so he's gonna, if you're on a water space here, you automatically are able to gather water. So there he filled his bottles. And he's gonna sleep 1. So now he's gonna end his turn. And move into the mountain there and sleep. And end his turn and move again. He gets attacked by a Triceratops. Alright. So he's only got 1 life point left, so he's got to sleep for sure, otherwise he's going to lose a life point. And then as far as movement, no, he's going to hunt. Hunt was unsuccessful. Gather water. He got some water though. Hunt again. Now he's got 2 days of food and ends the turn. Alright, so he's in a predicament here because it's going to cost 4 to move here, but he's down to 1 life point, so he's going to lose points for having too much exhaustion, but oh well. Game over. He lost, but anyhow, to win you have to get to this space up here where civilization is. I'll show you the code now if you're interested. You're either going to find it very interesting to see what the code looks like, or it's going to bore you out of your mind, so it's up to you if you want to watch that. The code has 3 main files. There's survival.js, hex game engine version 1.js, those are JavaScript files, and survival.html. Survival.html is the actual web page. Let me show you what's going on there. Over here, it is preloading all the images because sometimes, well, JavaScript loads images asynchronously, so you can come into circumstances where you need to use the image, but it hasn't loaded yet. So this forces them to be loaded into the user's browser before JavaScript even executes. And this down here, this is the canvas, this is the drawing area. And this is one of the dialog boxes. That's the first one that comes up when the game starts. And this is a generic one where I put all sorts of different messages in and stuff like saying how much water you had and so forth. That's what it gets plugged into. So let's start with the reusable piece of the code. That's Hex Game Engine version 1.cs. It starts with a class called HexGrid. In that class, it has these bunch of methods related to creating hex grids. Here's draw hex grid, which draws the grid, but that calls the method draw hex a column row. So that's where you tell it where to place certain hexes. And this method here gets the location of a hex. You give it the coordinates of a hex, and it tells you where it is pixel-wise on the screen. And here's draw hex to draw a single hex. And this get relative canvas offset, the canvas is not in the top left corner exactly, so this takes the offset so you can add it to your calculations later when you're determining where to place stuff on the screen. Here's get selected tile. That tells you exactly what hex is selected. You're giving it the mouse coordinates here and it figures it out from there. And here's get adjacent hex list. That just tells you the hexes that are next to the hex that you're in. And down here, this is supported audio format. This is for the audio files. One of the problems with different browsers is some will not play OGG files, some will not play WAV, some will not play MP3, so you have to include all three types of files, and this figures out which type of sound file the user's web browser will use, and it serves them the correct file. And here's play sound. This is what actually plays the sounds, and also it pools them, so if you're trying to play two sounds at once, it puts the second one in a pool and plays it when it can. JavaScript's not very good at playing multiple sounds at the same time. But most of this hex engine I wrote myself. There's a few things I got off GitHub, but it's mostly mine. And here's survival.js. You have the game engine, but this is the actual stuff that makes this game alone. So at the top here, it's declaring the monsters. They have the monster name, the image URL, the sound, how much HP, and attack. Like attack at 2 means that on a roll of a 0, 1, or 2 it hits. Like this one down here is an attack of 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 it will hit. And this is the terrain cost matrix here. This is a representation of the hexes on the screen. It says the amount of action points you need to enter the hex there. And this down here is a water likelihood matrix. If it's 10, that there's definitely water there. 2 means there's a 20% chance, 3, 30% chance, and so forth. And here's where the actual game itself begins, Survival App. Right, in Survival App, main function is event mouse down, which essentially, most of the game is just listening for a mouse click here, and when it gets a mouse click, it handles it. So it's an event-driven game. It's driven by the mouse clicks. Down here, if the end turn button is clicked, this executes. It's just taking the mouse location and seeing if it's within the box that represents the button. This one's which determines if you click gather water. This one determines if you click to hunt button, and this one if you click the sleep button. And this one, if you're in movement and you clicked on one of the green X's, this is what executes. Down here is monster check. It's just basically rolling to see if a monster is there or not. So on a 0, 1, or 2 out of a roll of 10, or excuse me, it's doing a random number from 0 to 9, but on a 0, 1, or 2 is when the monster shows up. So that's like kind of like your die roll. And here it's determines randomly what type of monster it is, or dinosaur for that matter. And here's the dialog box it puts up for the combat window. And here's where the images and sounds get initialized. And down here, this is a code for shooting. Figures out if you hit the target, and then after it does that, it figures out if the monster hits you. And here's a refresh screen. This gets called a lot in the code. It draws the background and grid, then draws the picture image on the right with a right column below it, and then draws your counter on the screen too. And here's animate button. One of the problems with Canvas is Canvas doesn't have buttons built in it, so normally people put them outside the canvas. I didn't want to do that, so I made my own homemade buttons. Essentially, you're just drawing a rectangle and then putting a border around it and putting the text in it. And when the rectangle gets clicked, it changes the color of the rectangle so you can see you clicked it, and so forth. And here's where it draws the right column. That's where it's drawing the actual buttons here. And down here is start game. This is what executes when the game first starts. It sets the action points to 4, life points to 10. Water amount equals 4 liters of water, food amount of 3, and your exhaustion's at 0. And here's place counter randomly. When you first start the game, your counter will start on the bottom of the screen. This randomly determines which hex on the bottom of the screen it starts in. And here's the actual code to gather water. And that's a code for hunting. And the sleeping code for when you sleep. And the end turn code for when you click that. And down here, this is what happens when you either win or lose the game. Like here, not won, which means lost, it triggers that message, or if you won, it triggers that message, and after 3 seconds, it restarts the game. And here's where it triggers the generic dialogues. But anyhow, just wanted to show you guys this since most people have never seen the inner workings of a video game. This is a very small video game. It's only 1,025 lines of code, which sounds like a lot, but isn't for a video game. That's like extremely small. Thanks for watching and have a good evening.